phones, creating a cycle of addiction. Branching off from some notifications and sounds and barriers, another prominent example includes infinite scrolling in social media.
Yes, infinite scrolling allows users to endlessly swipe through their content without actually clicking. In a recent interview, an engineer by the name of Raskin said that he did not set out to addict people with this feature, but now feels guilty about it. And he mentioned that many designers were driven to create addictive app features by the business models of the big companies that employed them. Studies indicate that there are links between overusing social media and depression, loneliness, and a host of other mental problems.
On top of that, texting addiction is another prominent example that can branch off from screen time addiction. For example, smartphones can actually trigger a dopamine loop, and this is similar. This is basically what an addiction loop is, and dopamine is a chemical that exists in our body that associates itself with a want factor and a want and desire factor. And when we are using our phones, that dopamine causes a want factor for us to want to look at our phones. And whenever we get a text, basically dopamine increases our curiosity, and this dopamine loop starts with seeking and then wants us to seek more once we find out what that text is about. And this loop carries on and is something that continuously addicts us to looking at our phones, visual cues, emojis, and texts. Branching off of some examples and different perspectives, now I think it's important for us to give a little bit of an overview about the statistics regarding an addiction about screen time. What do you think?
When it comes to the causes and statistics involving addiction, it appears that high avoidant attachment, low self-esteem, and high anxiety levels lead to screen addiction.
Definitely.
It seems that Instagram is the worst social media in terms of impact, and psychiatrists have recently discovered a link between depression and video game addiction as well. There also seems to be an imbalance in the brain chemistry of young people addicted to smartphones and the internet. 95% of these young people say that their tech use interferes with daily opportunities. And 73% of young adults suffer from symptoms of digital eye strain from screen overuse. It just so happens that the longer someone spends on everyday technology, the less productive they are at work. Furthermore, a link has been found between excessive social media use and poor academic performance. So now we should talk about how to combat screen addiction. General tricks and tips for people who just need to get away. Right, Saksham?
Yeah, absolutely, Ishan. One thing people can actually do is reconnect with nature. Studies have shown that activities like hiking and camping are great ways to distract yourself from technologies, and re-experiencing nature in its purest form is something that can really go a long way for individuals.
Another way to go is by committing yourself to a digital detox. Similar to dieting, a digital detox involves controlling or limiting screen time by either getting rid of devices or using apps and features to shut devices after a certain amount of time.
Yeah, of course. And, oftentimes you might have to fight fire with fire, or in this case, an app with an app. There are a lot of apps out there that recognize that people are facing screen addiction, and so providing services to help combat that can really be helpful for addicts, screen addicts. Things like monitoring screen time and figuring out a way to trick your brain into reducing your dependence on devices can be hugely effective in combating the screen addiction.
Lastly, if you're really struggling with screen addiction, a way to go might just be to get rid of social media altogether. Just delete all your apps and see how it goes.
Yeah, and in terms of apps that can help combat screen addiction, we'd like to highlight some apps that are particularly effective. I particularly like this one app called OffTime. OffTime is actually an app that blocks apps like Facebook and Instagram, as well as filters text and communications to make sure that you can stay focused on what you need to do.
Now, Moment is a great app that has a great tracking device feature that allows you to keep track of how long you spend on social media. And lets you set limits on your use. Break Free is a great app that allows tracking and goes one step further by giving you tips and advice on how to decrease your time.
Yeah, continuing with that, Flipped is an app for those with severe screen addictions. Flipped allows you to actually lock your phone for a certain period of time without giving you a way to reverse the shutdown. Not even resetting the phone works. If you need to completely detox, this could actually be the way to go.